Thank you for being here so much and for spending your Saturday evening with your Sacramento Philharmonic and Opera. My name is Lora Painter, evening anchor at ABC 10, and this is our first opera of the season, Pagliacci, and it is so exciting to have all of you here. And joining me now on stage are our maestros for the evening. We have our conductor, Michael Christie, and our stage director, Chuck Hudson. Please give them a round of applause, please, for being here. And a warm welcome to Sacramento for these two. I want to start off with you, Chuck. Tell us what a stage director does, just for anyone who this may be their first opera, which is so exciting. We're so glad that we're sharing this evening with you. But really, what is the role of a stage director?
The stage director is kind of like what a movie director does, where it's our concept of the show that we're sharing with the audience, and so we work with the design team to create the set that you'll see, the world that they're going to embody, the clothing they're going to wear, the period that we're setting it in, and it's our job to help reveal the meaning of the show, what the show is about, not just what the story is. So then I direct the singers like I would direct actors, where they're moving on stage, how they're moving on stage, what their communication is about, how to make it look like talking and listening. It's tricky in the opera world because we're singing in Italian. The audience is going to be reading super titles, and so we also have to time things so that the audience eye can do that and not feel like we're messing up the human behavior.
Ah, I see. You're going to have us speaking Italian by the end of the night.
By the end of the
Very cool. So Michael, tell us how you got into conducting.
Well, I started as a trumpet player originally from Buffalo, New York, and did a lot of musical theater, actually, both on stage and in the pit. And I just always thought it was fascinating how this person could help facilitate not only musical interpretation, but also bringing people together. And so while I do a lot of symphonic productions, I really do enjoy this terrific collaboration between musicians in the pit and musicians and artists on the stage, because it's really a wild thing when you think about it, that the person that is in the deepest part of the pit is physically separated from the person, not only visually, but aurally separated by, could be 75 feet. Or more, and so the conductor acts as this linchpin to try to help make their music making of both parties sympathetic, and I enjoyed that.
Right, and let's expand on that. This is such a fascinating art form that we have, opera. There's so much going on, and it's a lot of different forms coming together. The human voice, we have instruments, we have costumes and staging and set and acting as well. As far as on the conducting end, how are you managing all of those different things?
Well, fortunately, everybody that is performing all operates with the same ideas. That you have to take a breath in order to do anything, right? So you have to take a breath before you play an oboe. You have to take a breath before you sing. And so a lot of my job, honestly, I hope you don't watch me too much for this, but if you ever see it at any of these critical moments, I'm usually just helping people take breaths together. And so I think that's a lot of what again, back to that linchpin idea, is try to make sure that we're all turning the corners in tempo together, that we are regulating our crescendos and getting more intense, or also just having made decisions with Chuck about, well, actually the drama needs a pause here, and kind of being the moderator of that in situ, in the heat of battle, so to speak, in performance. So I try to think of it like a director in a certain stage, in a certain sense, because I have to give some of those cues as far as the pacing of things in real time, while also honoring what we've agreed is how the flow of it's going to work. So it's a collaboration not only behind the scenes, but even through the performance, and remembering what we've talked about and agreed.
This idea of breath is really important for the performers on stage. We begin everything with a breath. Your thoughts come to you on an inhale, the gesture begins on an inhale. I was just saying this is an Italian opera. I was trained in France. Inspiration and inhale are the same word in Latin-based languages. So finding that impulse to breathe is the impulse to act, it's the impulse to speak. All of that gets coordinated together. Michael and I have never worked together before. I've wanted to work with him for quite a while now, so we luckily got put together. And just like I meet the singers sometimes for the very first time on the first day of rehearsal, we meet each other for the first time on the first day of rehearsal. And sitting down and listening to him speak to the singers about phrasing, about where this pause needs to happen, about where this breath needs to happen, every single one of them lined up already with what impulses I thought were going to be important with the drama. And that kind of coordination allows me to go, I can relax in the situation now, right? And let that collaboration really happen. Yeah.
That is so cool. Now, I will say, I had a chance to see a rehearsal, and it was really, really eye-opening because the set wasn't there. And what they had done, this was in a church gymnasium, so I think gymnasium, and they were so clever. You guys had taped out foot by foot, inch by inch, very precise, where the set would be. And tonight we're going to see that in real life, which I'm so excited to see. Tell me about how rehearsals go when you don't have a fountain, when you don't have certain big props like that. How do you as a director manage all of that?
The imagination is the most important thing, that we have to be able to find a way to get the singers to visualize what the world is that they're going to be embodying. You were asking what a stage director does. Often when I'm explaining, people go, oh, so you're the stage manager. And I go, no, the stage manager is the person on stage. Oh, you're the conductor. No, the conductor is in the pit. The stage manager, people don't really know what they do. And part of that was taping out the floor. They're backstage running every cue, every entrance, counting the music to make sure that the light cues are happening. So they're involved in that rehearsal process as well. And as you saw in rehearsal, you're going to see a chorus that's going to be standing on multiple levels on this set, and they were just taped out on the floor. So they're literally standing in front of each other in rehearsal. And we have to say, I don't know if you can see the conductor until we get on stage to see if that can happen. So in rehearsal, they're jostling around trying to see the conductor. There's nothing to sit on if I want them to sit on the edge of the fountain or sit on the edge of the platform. So in rehearsal, you saw me running up and throwing a chair out there. They can sit on the chair. I pull the chair away. We're about to do some stage combat. We only have the one soprano. We don't want to lose her, so we have to throw that mat down on the floor for her to fall on because it's a gymnasium. So all the amount of activity that was going on there, you won't see here. It'll all be focused on them embodying the characters on the set.
And the other thing that's really interesting about the rehearsal process, I think it's the same in just straight theater as it is in opera, is that you do gain a familiarity with each other in a rehearsal space, which then you have to transfer into the performance space. And a lot of it's very easy, but then as the leaders of this transference, we have to kind of gauge like, okay, we have to give everybody time to actually settle into their imagination becoming reality, your imagination becoming reality too. So it's a very dynamic process the whole way along. People learning what the action and expectations are, people learning what the flow of the music is, and then here now is the space, and here's the hall, and then what is very interesting for me, I think, is when they hear how the orchestra sounds, not only to what it would sound like for you in the audience, but what it sounds like back here, or 50 feet back. So it's yet another part of this very organic process.
Yeah, the proscenium arch that's here is designed to send sound that way. So the closer we are downstage or even in front of that proscenium arch, the sound is different for the audience, but sound doesn't travel back that way either. So just the way they need to listen, and sometimes they can't hear, they can't listen, they must watch the conductor to be able to coordinate what's happening. You'll see that there are monitors that we have here now because we're not in the 19th century anymore. So I can see the conductor there, I can see the conductor there, I can see the conductor there, and I don't need to stage them to where they're doing this all the time to try to connect. They can connect with each other.
Right. And there is a living down here too.
Right, they do, and you will notice perhaps you see some microphones in the pit, if you can see that, and that sound actually gets mixed and then sent to some speakers that are backstage so they can hear that. But what I always find amazing is even as loud as you would dare to turn up the orchestra sound, the volume of a singer, an opera singer singing at full throttle is unbelievable. And when they are singing at those big moments, they will often say, it doesn't matter how loud you turn that speaker up, I cannot hear it. Because the volume of sound just in their immediate orbit is just so immense. It's just a really neat kind of workplace situation that they have to negotiate, because they will start singing, and it really is just between the conductor and the soloist at that point.
Oh, quite literally the power of the human voice, right? Now, speaking of all the technology that we have to help aid in making the production as flawless as possible, when we think about when Pagliacci was first performed, right, back in the day, and how this opera has stood the test of time, what is it about this story that you guys think really keeps us coming back for more? It's a play within a play. So just so everyone knows that also adds to a neat layer, right? Like, especially towards the end, which kind of happened in the rehearsal. No spoilers, but that, you know, the play within a play concept. I wonder what is it about Pagliacci, your guys' expert opinions, that has people coming back for more? What is so true about it that we still resonate?
The very first days of rehearsal, I sat down with the singers and I said, this is what the show is about. This is this director's vision. And I'll correct you a little bit. It's a play within a play within a play.
Meta, very meta.
So it's very, very meta. And that's something that we're doing with it in particular that may not be done with every performance or with every version of it. The way we present the prologue, it is a prologue that happens before the show happens, before the play within the show happens. But we're doing some very particular things with the staging of that to hopefully make those worlds work together. So we have to say, what's the show about? What is the theme of the show? What is the meaning of the show? And in the prologue it's set out for us. You're about to see actors on stage that are wearing traditional masks on their faces, and there are human beings that are behind them that you don't see are genuine suffering. And all the way through the show, that is a metaphor, that's a symbol, that's an image that's embodied scene by scene by scene, that for me helps me direct the through lines of the character. We have to get from the beginning of the show to the end of the show. The famous aria that we all know from this, that is in the middle of it. He looks at himself in the mirror and he says, so you think you're a human being? No, you're Pagliacci. And that he's trying to have a moment with himself as a human being. He can't, because he's got to go on stage and perform. And we performers have all been in that situation where something devastating has just happened in our personal life, and I got to go out on stage and make people laugh because this is a comedy with a K, right? So this is not a comedy, by the way.
Right.
And really the human condition right there,
Yeah.
right? You just got to overcome sometimes, right? For another purpose that is also important in your life too, right? In this case, right? Michael, anything else you have on
Well, I think, the wonderful thing about theater and opera and just the whole presentation of humanity and these human conditions, I think as we look back a century or further back, these stories that keep coming back, there's this, whatever they say, the 7 or 12 plot lines that always come back. It just reminds me that no matter where we are in the world, and no matter at what point in history we've lived, we still loved, we still lost, we still yearned, all of these things. So I think that, for me, that's the kind of the simple answer about why a great story like this is so potent and why it does stand the test of time. Of course, the music written for it is just glowing, and it's so appropriate for each phase of the action. It's in this verismal style, as they say, which is a lifelike style they try to achieve. A composer like Puccini as well tried to achieve this, if the snow was falling, the music somehow glittered. You kind of had that feeling. So there's a lot of that opportunity in this score as well. It's written in that same style. But I think because we have all experienced, in varying degrees, the situations and the emotional pull that any one of these characters experience. I'm cold. I'm pining for you. I've reached a crossroad in my life. That's because it's represented so truthfully and so potently. I think that's why it resonates decades and centuries later.
Mm-hmm. And Chuck, I wonder what keeps you coming back for more in your line of work? What keeps you going? What are some of the most lovely and memorable and just precious moments in your line of work?
I was an actor before I was a director, and I was a competitive gymnast when I was younger, so I was always the guy just swinging on a rope, did backflips and things like that. I played Petruchio forever and went through 3 different Catherines to make the tour work and all that kind of stuff. I love classical theater, I love language, I love movement theater. I worked with Marcel Marceau for 6 years, and I toured with him, I was apprenticed to him for a long time. And the universality of his human behavior was what struck me. That he would play the same show in the United States, in China, in South America, in Europe. There was no language barrier because he found in this universal language that is human behavior, something that everybody recognized. They laugh at the same things, they cry at the same things, they're arrested and they're hushed by the same things. Music does that exact same thing. That the universality of music, even if you didn't have those super titles, I hope that the behavior that you're seeing on stage combined with the music that you're hearing is letting you know what that story is or letting you know how you feel with that. And I kind of love, as a director, I feel like I'm a sculptor with human beings. I like being able to make that 3-dimensional thing get shared out there. I hope I'm not a self-glorifying director. It's not about me, it's about them and that connection that's going on out there.
It's a beautiful thing, you are a sculptor, right? And shaping what vision we're going to be experiencing, and then allowing us room to make our own vision as well, our own interpretation. It's a really beautiful thing. Do you think that your performing arts background, having you being sculpted as well, does that also inform you in your life?
I think I know when to push someone beyond their comfort zone to make them do something that they've never done before, and I hope I know when to leave them alone so that they can explore that and do it on their own. And I think having been an actor, I can tell when an actor is trying to avoid a scene because that's not the direction they want to go in. And I can go, great, what direction do you want to go in? Because I do want that involvement to happen, that collaboration to happen that way. Speaking of breath again, when you're in rehearsal and you can see the impulse of that performer to do something other than what I've directed, or in addition to what I've directed, it's normally the breath that you see that begins it. They inhale and they do a movement that starts, and I can go, you wanted to do something there, you wanted to react sooner. If we do that, that's going to change the sequence of events that's following. That's what rehearsal is for.
Very interesting. And that's what you might mention.
Yeah, and I think that in performance, those impulses take on a different, even yet a different energy, because then there's nerves, there's also interactions that are heightened because we are in the moment. And I look forward to and treasure watching the singers as they're progressing through the roles and seeing how they're experiencing those roles in that moment, and seeing how can we in the pit support that. Is it helping? Is it to drive the tempo a little harder because I can see they're really getting ready for a high note, or something's happened, or that I see them just wait, and it's like, okay, we'll just wait because something's happened. And you just feel it, and just think, oh, that's fantastic. So when you can facilitate even a few moments like that in a night, that for me is gold.
There's also something that's a little frightening about opera that's not frightening in the theater world, because in spoken theater, the actor can stop if there's a problem, because there's not an orchestra that's driving underneath it. So I can change the tempo of my speech, I can go louder or softer, I can, in the moment, make tiny changes. And I love the first time I was directing Don Giovanni and the singer's earrings fell to the floor. And I was like, wouldn't it be perfect for Don Giovanni to pick up those earrings and hand them to her? Can't, because the music is going on, and they're like, I've got to continue singing this duet and stay with the conductor, and there's earrings on the floor. And just those simple things, we hope we get rid of those in rehearsals, but they do happen on stage, and they have to live in that world.
Fascinating. Gentlemen, thank you so much for sharing your behind the scenes insights with us tonight. We can't wait to see all of those visions manifested on stage tonight. A round of applause for our special guest.